The galaxy did not scream when it began to die. It went quiet. Trade lanes emptied. Beacons stopped responding. Ancient star systems that had burned bright for tens of thousands of years vanished behind curtains of static and silence. Entire civilizations disappeared without sending a single clear warning. And when the truth finally surfaced, it came not as a declaration of war, but as a broken, desperate message sent into the void. A plea. Far from the galactic core, on a world of pale oceans and glass-like cities, the Alindran Union was collapsing. The Alindrans were old. Older than most. Their history stretched back before many species had even evolved eyes. They had shaped stellar politics, written the laws of interstellar war, and decided which young civilizations were allowed to rise, and which were not. For centuries, they believed themselves prepared for anything the universe could throw at them. They were wrong. The enemy did not come from known space. It did not negotiate. It did not conquer for territory. It erased. The first Alindran fleet vanished near the outer rim, torn apart by weapons that bent space instead of cutting through it. The second fleet never even got close. Its ships simply shut down, their reactors turned into cold metal coffins. Worlds followed. Then star systems. Each lost faster than the last. Within 6 months, the Alindran Union had lost half its territory and nearly all its fleets. Inside the Union's final council chamber, the air felt heavy, thick with fear and shame. Tall crystalline windows looked out over a city that was still beautiful, but now silent. No celebration lights. No traffic streams. Only emergency signals and evacuation paths. High Councillor Vila Thane stood at the center of the chamber, his long robes dragging across the polished floor. His species' luminous eyes, once symbols of calm wisdom, flickered with exhaustion. Around him sat the last representatives of the Union's surviving worlds. "We have no fleets left," one councillor said quietly. "No defenses that matter," said another. "And no allies willing to answer our calls," a third added. Silence followed. Everyone in the room knew why. For centuries, the Alindrans had decided who was ready for the stars. They had delayed, restricted, and quietly sabotaged younger species they considered unstable or dangerous. One species in particular had always made them uneasy. Humans. Too emotional. Too aggressive. Too unpredictable. When humanity first reached interstellar space, the Alindran Union had smiled politely and closed every meaningful door. Trade limits. Technology restrictions. Military exclusion. Humans were allowed to exist, but never to matter. Now, as extinction crept closer with every passing hour, the unthinkable suggestion finally surfaced. A junior councillor spoke, her voice barely steady. "There is one option left." Every eye turned toward her. "No," Vila said immediately. His voice was sharp, almost angry. "We will not finish our history by begging children." "They are no longer children," she replied. "Not anymore." Data projections flared to life in the center of the chamber. Sparse information. Fragmented reports. Half-believed rumors gathered from smugglers, traders, and fringe explorers. Human systems that never fell. Human ships that vanished from sensors and reappeared untouched. Battlefields where unknown attackers were destroyed, without any official record of human involvement. "They hide their strength," the councillor continued. "They always have." Vila looked at the projections. He hated that part of him already knew the truth. Humans had been quiet for too long. "If we go to them," another councillor said bitterly, "we admit we were wrong." "Yes," the junior councillor replied. "And if we don't, we die being right." The chamber fell silent again. Hours later, a single Alindran vessel detached from the dying heart of the Union. It was not a warship. Not even a diplomatic cruiser in the old sense. It was small, unarmed, and broadcasting a message on every known human frequency. A message stripped of pride. A message stripped of authority. A message that ended with words the Alindran Union had never spoken to anyone. "We ask for help." The message arrived in human space without alarms. No emergency broadcast. No public announcement. No panic. It was routed through channels that did not officially exist, decoded by systems that were never listed, and delivered to people who did not appear on any public chain of command. On Earth, the sun was just beginning to rise when Director Elena Moreno paused mid-step in a quiet government corridor. Her wrist display pulsed once. Then again. She read the message. She closed her eyes. "So," she whispered, "it finally happened." Far below the surface of Mars, in a facility labeled as a geological archive, an old man stopped playing chess with himself and stared at the wall as hidden lights turned on one by one. On Europa, a cargo engineer quietly locked a door and removed a device she had worn under her skin since childhood. In orbital habitats, in remote research stations, in places no one ever questioned, the same silent signal echoed. Not an alarm. A confirmation. The waiting was over. Director Moreno stood inside a secure room that had no windows and no visible screens. When she spoke, her voice was calm, but heavy with meaning. "Confirm identity," she said. A projection formed in the air. High Counselor Vila Thane appeared, smaller than life, his posture no longer proud. He bowed deeply the moment the connection stabilized. "We know what we ask," Vila said. "We know what we denied you. And we know that we may deserve silence in return." Moreno watched him without expression. "The enemy we face," he continued, "cannot be stopped by what remains of us. But we believe humanity may have prepared for a future the rest of us refuse to imagine." Moreno folded her hands behind her back. "For centuries," Vila said, his voice breaking slightly, "we believed strength meant visibility. Fleets. Displays. Power announced loudly. If humanity possesses something different, something hidden." He swallowed. "Then we ask you to decide the fate of the galaxy." The room was silent long enough for the weight of history to settle. Finally, Moreno spoke. "You came to us because you ran out of choices," she said. "Yes. You came because every door you closed on us is now closed to you." "Yes." She stepped closer to the projection. "Then listen carefully, Counselor Thane," she said. "Because there is something the galaxy never understood about humanity." Vila lifted his eyes. "When humans are loud," Moreno continued, "we are arguing. When we are aggressive, we are reacting. But when we are quiet—" She paused. "We are building." The connection ended. Across human space, deep beneath worlds and within shadows no alien had ever mapped, massive systems began to wake. Reactors hummed after centuries of silence. Hull lights flickered on in places legends were never meant to be real. The galaxy had asked for help. And humanity had finally decided to answer. The Alindran envoy arrived at the edge of human space with no escort and no expectations left. High Counselor Vila Thane stood alone on the observation deck of his vessel as stars stretched into steady lines and then settled back into pinpoints of light. The transition out of faster-than-light travel was smooth. Too smooth. Human navigation beacons were simple, efficient, and strangely quiet. No grand welcoming fleet. No challenge signals. No warnings. Just coordinates. Just permission. "This is their border?" Vila asked softly. His aide, Seri's call, adjusted her console. "According to their data, yes. No weapons platforms detected. No defense grid." Vila did not relax. That was exactly what unsettled him. The ship drifted toward a modest orbital station above a yellow star. It was small by galactic standards, functional rather than impressive. No ornamentation. No visible shields flaring. No proud banners of a great power. It looked ordinary. And yet, Vila felt watched. When the airlock opened, the delegation was met by a handful of humans in neutral uniforms. No elaborate ceremonial armor. No weapons on display. Just calm faces and steady eyes. Director Elena Moreno stepped forward. "Welcome to human space," she said simply. "I hope your journey was uneventful." Vila bowed again, lower this time. "You honor us by receiving us at all." Moreno studied him for a long moment. She noticed the faint tremor in his hands, the exhaustion in his posture. This was not the confident leader who had once dismissed humanity with a vote and a smile. This was a man carrying the weight of a dying civilization. "Come," she said. "There are things we should discuss." The station's interior was plain. Metal corridors. White lighting. No art. No trophies. No historical displays. Vila had seen human cities before. Loud, crowded places full of noise and emotion. This was different. Everything here existed for a reason. They entered a circular chamber with a single table. No guards visible. No screens active. "Sit," Moreno said. Vila did. "You asked for help," she said. "Before we discuss what that means, you need to understand something." She activated a single display. A star map appeared. Sparse. Clean. "This is what we show the galaxy," she said. "A handful of human systems. Limited fleets. Trade routes. Predictable expansion." Then she gestured. "And this," she continued, "is what we never did." The map changed. Vila inhaled sharply. Hidden installations flared into view across human territory. Not clustered. Not centralized. Spread out in a pattern that made no immediate sense. Deep space structures. Subsurface facilities. Objects hidden inside asteroid fields and gas giants. Some were old. Very old. 412 years ago, Moreno said, we asked ourselves a question. She looked directly at him. What happens if the galaxy fails? Vila said nothing. We studied history, she continued. Not just ours. Yours. Every species we could observe. Empires rise. Alliances fracture. Ancient powers decay. Every civilization believes it will be the exception. Her voice remained calm, but there was steel beneath it. None of you were. The map shifted again. Lines connected the hidden installations, forming layers within layers. Redundancies. Backup paths. Emergency mobilization routes. You built this in secret, Vila whispered. Why? Moreno's expression did not change. Because when humanity fights openly, she said, we escalate. And when we escalate, things get uncontrollable. She leaned forward. So instead, we prepared quietly, carefully, with rules. Another display appeared. Ship silhouettes unlike anything Vila had ever seen. Not sleek. Not elegant. Massive. Brutal. Purpose-built. These vessels were never meant to patrol borders, Moreno said. They were designed for one purpose only. Vila swallowed. Ending wars. Hours later, Vila found himself inside a shuttle descending toward a world that did not officially exist. The planet below was grey and scarred, its surface broken by vast metallic structures rising from the ground like the bones of giants. Energy signatures rippled across the surface, tightly controlled, impossibly dense. This facility predates your first contact with us, Moreno said over the shuttle's quiet hum. That would have been impossible, Vila replied. You assumed we were still thinking in decades, she said. We were thinking in centuries. The shuttle landed inside a cavern so vast Vila's mind struggled to process it. The ceiling disappeared into darkness. The air vibrated with dormant power. And then the lights came on. Vila dropped to one knee without realizing he had moved. Rows upon rows of colossal ships filled the space. Each one different. Each one scarred by testing and refinement. Hulls layered with materials that bent sensor readings and absorbed energy in ways his science teams had deemed theoretical. Names were etched into their sides in simple human lettering. Aegis. Atlas. Firebreak. Long Night. These are not our entire fleet, Moreno said quietly. They are our answer to extinction-level threats. Vila's voice shook. How many? Enough, she replied. He looked at her, eyes wide with something between terror and hope. And you hid this, from everyone. Moreno nodded. Power that is displayed invites challenge, she said. Power that is hidden buys time. She turned to him. You are here because time has run out. In another part of the galaxy, the enemy advanced. The Null Ascendancy, as they called themselves, did not celebrate conquest. They did not issue declarations. They consumed systems methodically, harvesting energy and matter with precision. Entire civilizations vanished into silent efficiency. When their scouts reached the edge of former Elindran territory, something unexpected happened. A system resisted. Human-designed defenses activated without warning. Not powerful enough to stop the advance, but not weak enough to be ignored. The Ascendancy paused. For the first time in its recorded existence, the enemy hesitated. Back on the grey world, Vila felt a strange emotion stirring in his chest. Not relief. Not victory. Something far more dangerous. Hope. Hope was a dangerous thing. High Counselor Vila Thane felt it growing inside him as he stood on the observation platform overlooking the vast underground hangar. The human ships remained still, silent giants resting in artificial gravity fields. They did not glow. They did not announce their power. They waited. That, more than anything, frightened him. In Elindran history, power was always displayed. Fleets shone like jewels. Weapons hummed loudly. Strength demanded to be seen, to be acknowledged. These human vessels did none of that. They existed as if they did not need permission. Director Alina Moreno stood beside him, her hands clasped behind her back. You are wondering why we think we can face something that erased your fleets so easily, she said. Yes, Vila admitted. Your ships are impressive, but the enemy we face does not fight like anything we know. Moreno nodded. That's why we didn't prepare to fight what you know. She gestured, and a holographic chamber formed around them. The hangar faded, replaced by stars. Then distortion. Space itself bent and twisted as simulations played out. This, she said, is how the Null Ascendancy attacks. Vila watched as simulated alien ships unfolded strange geometries, their weapons not firing beams or projectiles, but collapsing sections of space. Enemy targets did not explode. They simply failed. Matter came apart at a level beyond conventional physics. Our scientists saw the early reports, Moreno continued. Your people called it impossible. A violation of natural law. She turned to him. Humans hear that phrase differently. The simulation shifted. A human research vessel appeared, small and fragile. The Null Ascendancy weapon struck it. Instead of collapsing, the human ship folded. Space bent around it like water around a stone. The weapon passed through empty coordinates. Vila's breath caught. That should not be possible. No, Moreno said calmly. It shouldn't. The scene froze. 200 years ago, she continued, we learned something important. The universe is not stable. It is negotiated. She explained how human physics had taken a different path. Where other species sought perfect theories and elegant laws, humans embraced contradictions. They built models that worked even when they did not fully understand why. They accepted uncertainty and weaponized it. We stopped trying to dominate physics, Moreno said. We started arguing with it. The hologram changed again. Human ships did not overpower the Ascendancy weapons. They confused them. Space folded in unpredictable ways. Energy was redirected, diluted, misled. The enemy's precision became its weakness. They rely on certainty, Moreno said. Their technology assumes the universe will behave. Her eyes hardened. Ours assumes it won't. Deep in another sector, the Null Ascendancy analyzed its first true resistance. The system should have fallen in minutes. Instead, it took hours. Human defenses did not hit harder than expected. They behaved strangely. Weapons fired where ships were not. Shields appeared, vanished, then reappeared somewhere else entirely. Probability models failed. That concerned the Ascendancy more than losses. For the first time, it deployed an adaptation node, an intelligence designed to study and counter new threats. It watched humanity, and it did not like what it saw. Vila was led into another chamber, smaller and quieter. There were no projections here. Just a single human seated at a table. She was young. Barely an adult by Elindran standards. Her eyes were focused, distant, as if she were listening to something no one else could hear. "This is Myra Hale," Moreno said. "One of our navigators." Vila tilted his head. "She does not look like a soldier." "She isn't," Moreno replied. "She's a mathematician." Myra looked up and smiled politely. "Hello." "She plots paths through unstable space," Moreno said. "Not the safest path. Not the shortest. The one least likely to exist." Vila frowned. "I don't understand." Myra tapped the table. A small projection appeared. It showed millions of possible paths between 2 points in space, constantly shifting. "Most species choose the best path," Myra said softly. "We choose the one no one else would." She looked at Vila. "The ascendancy predicts outcomes. We generate surprises." Vila felt something cold slide down his spine. "How many of you are there?" he asked. Moreno did not answer immediately. "Enough," she said again. Later, as alarms echoed softly through the base, not warnings, but signals of activation, Vila stood alone, staring at a massive viewport. One of the ships was powering up. Its hull absorbed light, edges blurring as if reality itself struggled to define its shape. The name etched along its side was simple. Long Night. "What does that mean?" Vila asked quietly. Moreno joined him. "It's a human phrase," she said. "It means enduring darkness without knowing when dawn will come." The ship detached from its cradle, moving with slow, deliberate grace. "We've lived through many long nights," Moreno continued. "Plagues. Wars. Near-extinction events. Times when hope was irrational." She looked at him. "We learned how to function anyway." The first true engagement happened far from any inhabited world. A null ascendancy harvesting fleet encountered 3 human vessels. Only 3. The ascendancy did not retreat. It advanced confidently. The battle did not look like a battle. Human ships did not charge. They drifted, vanished, reappeared. Space fractured. Distances lit. Weapons fired and missed targets that had been in the same place moments before. Then the ascendancy lost a ship. Not destroyed. Disconnected. Its systems went dark, its link to the greater network severed. It drifted, inert. That had never happened before. The ascendancy withdrew. Not in panic. In calculation. Back on the hidden world, Vila felt the shift before anyone told him. "They are afraid," he said. Moreno nodded slowly. "Yes," she replied. "Not because we are stronger." She watched the fleet awaken, one ship at a time. "But because they don't understand us." Vila closed his eyes. For the first time since the war began, he believed the galaxy might survive. And for the first time in its long existence, the null ascendancy began planning for a future where it might not win. The galaxy noticed the change before it understood it. At first, it was only data anomalies, systems that should have fallen but didn't. Fleets that vanished from ascendancy tracking and then reappeared days later, intact. Supply chains interrupted by nothing anyone could see. The great machine mind of the null ascendancy adjusted, recalculated, and advanced anyway. That was how it had always worked. Until the humans stopped being subtle. The signal went out across former Elindran space on every open frequency, unencrypted and unmistakably human. "This system is under human protection. Leave now." The message repeated once. Then the fleet arrived. Vila Thane watched from the command deck of an Elindran refugee carrier, his hands gripping the rail as space distorted ahead of them. The human ships did not arrive in formation. They arrived as if reality itself had torn and failed to close properly. One moment, empty stars. The next, giants. Dozens of human warships emerged from folded space, each one casting shadows across sensors that struggled to measure them. Their hulls were dark, angular, scarred with history rather than polished for show. Energy signatures pulsed, not wildly, but with deep, controlled rhythm. "They're not hiding anymore," Ceri's call whispered beside him. "No," Vila said, his voice steady with awe. "They are declaring intent." The Null Ascendancy fleet did not retreat. It surged forward, weapons activating in precise synchronization. Space bent. Gravity twisted. Entire regions of the battlefield collapsed into lethal geometry. The human fleet did not break. Instead, it spread. Human ships moved like arguments rather than commands, each one reacting independently, adapting in real time. Where Ascendancy weapons struck certainty, human vessels responded with chaos. Distances changed. Vectors lied. Shots that should have erased targets passed through empty coordinates. Then the humans returned fire. It was not overwhelming. It was focused. Ascendancy ships began to fail in ways that made no sense. Communication links collapsed. Weapon nodes desynchronized. Entire vessels found themselves isolated from the network that defined their existence. "They're not destroying them," Ceri said. "They're separating them." "Yes," Vila replied. "They are breaking the enemy apart." One Ascendancy command ship attempted to adapt, rewriting its internal logic to counter human unpredictability. For a moment, it seemed to succeed. Then a human ship, Firebreak, moved directly into its path. The two vessels did not collide. Firebreak folded space around itself, wrapped the Ascendancy ship in a shifting shell of distorted reality, and forced it out of alignment with every known frame of reference. The Ascendancy ship ceased to exist, not destroyed, not exploded, simply removed from relevance. The rest of the enemy fleet withdrew. This time, not in calculation. In alarm. Across the galaxy, other species watched. They had dismissed humanity as emotional, divided, unstable. They had built policies around that belief. Now they saw human fleets holding territory the Concord had lost in days. They saw precision where chaos was expected. Restraint where vengeance would have been easy. Most unsettling of all, they saw humanity stopping the Ascendancy without erasing entire star systems. "They could have done this before," one alien observer whispered during a private transmission. "Yes," another replied. "And they chose not to." On the hidden command world, Director Alina Moreno stood before a wall of live feeds. Battles flared and faded across dozens of systems. Human losses appeared, ships damaged, crews injured, lives lost. She did not look away. Admiral Jonah Rourke, commander of the revealed fleet, stood beside her. "They're probing our limits," he said. "Trying to understand us." "They won't," Moreno replied. "Not in time." The Null Ascendancy had never faced an enemy that fought for individuals rather than efficiency. Human crews adapted mid-battle. They improvised. They sacrificed local advantage to protect civilian worlds they had never visited. Every human loss was felt. Every human victory was measured. That imbalance confused the Ascendancy. It escalated. A massive construct emerged near the galactic rim, a weapon platform the size of a moon, designed to collapse entire regions of space at once. It was not meant to conquer. It was meant to end resistance. Vila saw it on the display and felt the old fear return. "That will kill billions," he said quietly. "Yes," Moreno replied. "If it fires." She turned. "Prepare the armada." For the first time, ships humanity had never intended to reveal powered up fully. Reactors that had never exceeded test thresholds surged. Names long whispered only in contingency plans became active call signs. Atlas. Aegis. Long Night. The fleet did not rush the enemy weapon. It surrounded it. Human ships formed a shifting lattice, warping space in overlapping patterns. The Ascendancy platform attempted to fire, and failed. Its weapon required certainty. Fixed coordinates. Predictable geometry. Human interference turned space into a question without an answer. Then Atlas moved. The massive human vessel anchored reality itself, stabilizing a pocket of space just long enough for Aegis to deploy something no Ascendancy model had predicted. Not a weapon. A limit. The enemy platform shut down. Not damaged. Contained. The ascendancy withdrew across every front simultaneously. For the first time in its existence, it chose survival over expansion. Vila sank into a chair as the feeds quieted. "They did it," he whispered. "You did it." Moreno exhaled slowly. "No," she said. "We stopped it." She looked at the stars. "The war isn't over yet." The war did not end with celebration. There were no parades in human space. No triumphant broadcasts declaring victory. When the null ascendancy retreated beyond the rim, the galaxy held its breath, waiting for the other shoe to fall. Many civilizations had learned the hard way that enemies who left quietly often returned louder. Humanity did not chase them. That decision confused everyone. High Counselor Vila Thane stood aboard a human command vessel overlooking a scarred star system that was slowly stabilizing. The stars no longer screamed with distortion. Trade beacons flickered back to life. Refugee fleets began cautious returns to worlds they thought they would never see again. "You could have followed them," Vila said quietly to Director Elena Moreno, who stood beside him. "You had the advantage. You still do." Moreno nodded. "Yes." "Then why stop?" She did not answer immediately. "When humans were younger," she said at last, "we believed winning meant ending the threat completely, destroying it so thoroughly it could never rise again." She turned to him. "That belief almost destroyed us more than once." Vila listened. "We learned something the hard way," Moreno continued. "Power is easy to use. Restraint is not. And the moment you convince yourself that you are always right, you stop being human." She looked out at the stars. "The ascendancy retreated because we forced them to confront uncertainty. If we chase them now, we become predictable again. We teach them how we think." Vila's luminous eyes dimmed slightly. "So you let them go?" "We let them remember us," she replied. Across the galaxy, messages began to arrive. Species that had once dismissed humanity now asked for dialogue. Not aid. Not protection. Understanding. They had seen the human fleet. They had seen the power humanity could wield. What unsettled them was what humanity chose not to do with it. On one distant world, an alien child asked a teacher why the humans did not rule the galaxy now that they could. The teacher did not have a good answer. In human space, the hidden bases began to quiet again. Some ships returned to silence. Others remained active, stationed openly for the first time, not as conquerors, but as guardians. Human engineers repaired alien infrastructure without asking for payment. Medical teams crossed former borders to treat species that had once voted to limit human expansion. Not everyone agreed with this approach. In quiet rooms and secure networks, some humans argued that the galaxy would never truly trust them. That restraint would be seen as weakness again. That history would repeat itself. Admiral Jonah Rourke addressed those concerns in a private briefing. "They underestimated us because they thought strength only looked one way," he said. "Let them misunderstand again. We'll still be ready." Vila returned to what remained of the Alindran Union weeks later. The cities were damaged. The population reduced. The confidence shattered. But they were alive. As he stood before the reconstructed council chamber, he did something no Alindran leader had ever done before. He spoke openly. "We believed age made us wise," he said. "We believed control made us safe. And we believed youth made humanity dangerous." He looked around the chamber. "We were wrong." There was no protest. No outrage. Only tired agreement. "We will rebuild," Vila continued. "Not as we were, but as something better. And we will remember who answered when we had nothing left to offer." On Earth, far from councils and fleets, Myra Hale sat on a quiet hillside watching the sky. The stars looked peaceful again. That made her uneasy. Director Moreno approached and sat beside her. "Do you think they'll come back?" Myra asked. "Yes," Moreno said honestly. "Someday." Myra nodded. "Then we'll be ready." Moreno smiled faintly. "Always." Far beyond the rim, in regions of space that bent and whispered, the null ascendancy observed. It rebuilt. It analyzed. It revised its models. Humanity did not fit. Not because humans were stronger, but because they were inconsistent in ways that mattered. They fought fiercely, then stopped. They revealed power, then hid it again. They protected species that could not benefit them. This was not optimal behavior. It was dangerous. For the first time, the ascendancy categorized a species not as prey, not as rival, but as a variable too costly to ignore. Back in the quiet places of human space, old systems powered down. Young generations went on living normal lives, unaware of how close the galaxy had come to ending. The legends returned to silence, their names spoken only in secure halls and family stories passed down in whispers. Humanity did not ask for thanks. It did not demand recognition. It simply returned to watching the stars. But the galaxy would never watch them the same way again. Because now it knew the truth. When humanity was loud, it argued. When it was angry, it reacted. But when humanity went quiet, it was deciding the fate of everything. And somewhere in the endless dark, every civilization understood one final lesson. Never underestimate the species that prepares for a future it hopes will never arrive.